May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
Let Lori say good morning and
Welcome to the new year.
Happy New Year before we shift her off camera at her request. Well, as Lori said, happy New Year. Here we are with our first Sunday of a new year, 2021. We had a really beautiful New Year's Eve with some of you, and I apologize for the late notice. At the last minute, we decided, well, here we are. Let's and even though we're in a COVID-19 semi-lockdown and going on a year of the pandemic, why don't we do this thing? Last year, prior to the official outbreak of the pandemic at the loft, we had a New Year's Eve celebration sitting into the midnight hour, and actually did a burn with the fire and letting go of things that we wanted to let go of, literally burning them into nothingness. And then a ringing of the 108 bells into the New Year's Eve. And so we decided to do that again virtually and add a number of sits through the day. So some of you were able to join. Dylan, who's here with us this morning, I called him my New Year's Eve sitting buddy because he was pretty much there through the whole thing. Brandon and Melanie and Chalet were able to join going into the midnight hour, and we sat and then did the traditional ringing of 108 bells. And if you haven't seen that, after this talk, go Google 108 bells Japanese temples. There's some amazing videos outside the shrines of these huge, 1-story high temple bells, and literally a log on ropes that swings back and forth to hit the bell, and then people grabbing onto these ropes and swinging with their full weight of their body into the bell, and then back. And it's really something to behold. We didn't quite do that, but we did ring 108 bells. And it's interesting, the 108, that one explanation for the number is that we have our 6 senses. In Buddhism, we count consciousness as a sense, along with sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. So the 6 senses, and then 3 experiences coming out of those senses: positive, pleasant experience, negative or unpleasant experience, and neutral. So 6 times 3 is 18. And then we, with those experiences, we can either be attached to them or lamenting their absence. So being attached to the idea of it. So that's another 2. So 18 times 2 is 36. And then that we have these attachments in the past, the present, and the future, times 3 gives the 108. And so with each ring of the bell is a chance to let go, and let go. When we were together physically with a few of you last year, Tennessee, you were there, you'll remember, we actually switched off and let people, different people ring the bell as we tried to keep track of the 108. We couldn't this year, so Lori was on the bell 108 times, and I was with my fingers trying to keep track of 108, and I think we got it right. But anyway, thank you for joining us. More of that to come in 2021, not ringing of the 108 bells, but more programming and more just being with whatever state we're in, virtual or analog, physical or digital, with our practice. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, but I want to start with a case, case 6 of the Blue Cliff record. Deceptively simple case. It's called A Good Day. The example itself, the case is Ummon. Watch out. Whenever you see Ummon, watch out in koans, okay? Ummon said, I don't ask you about before the 15th day. Try to make a statement about after the 15th day. He himself replied, every day is a good day. The verse, throwing away one, he picks up 7. Above, below, in the 4 directions, none can match. Placidly walking along, he treads down the sound of the flowing stream. His relaxed gaze describes the tracks of flying birds. Grasses grow thick, mists overhang. Round Subuti's cliff, the flowers make a mess. Voidness is lamentable. Don't make a move. If you move, you get 30 blows. Really, really wonderful verse. In the case itself, I don't ask you about before the 15th day. I ask you to try to make a statement about after the 15th day. In China, both the 1st and 15th days of the month were considered special days. So one way to look at this is, I'm not asking you about a special day. Have something to say about the days that come after. And then Ummon, and he does this a number of times throughout the body of koans. Without pause, he gives the answer. He doesn't even wait. He just gives the answer. Every day is a good day. Now, when somebody gives you an answer like that, you have to be a little wary. A little wary. Is it an answer? Is it a challenge? Is it a prompt? Is it a provocation? Every day is a good day. And here we are in the new year. Happy New Year! Ring out the old and ring in the new. We have a change of administration, presumably happening later this month, although there are people that are trying not to make that happen. We had a year 2020 that introduced us collectively to a new level of connection and risk. The virus, this virus puts a huge spotlight on actually how connected we are to China and Italy and France and Mexico and each other, because it's our very connection physically with each other and through airline flights and traveling in countries and whatnot, the very connection that is spreading this threat. And so I don't know about your social media feeds, but I know in my social media feeds, there was a lot of emphasis on things like FU 2020, yay 2021. And I get it. I get it. It's like, oh man, can we be done with that? And then we have Ummon saying every day is a good day, which, in a Judeo-Christian context sounds a little bit like, God's will be done. And I always hesitate around this, how do you really express this day by day, moment by moment appreciation for our lives? Because if it just goes into this candy coated rose tinted glasses, Pollyanna-ish thing of like, well, it's all beautiful. So how does that ring true to somebody that has lost their parent in a nursing home and we're not able to see them? Or somebody whose family member, fell sick and was swooped off to the hospital, and that was the last time they were able to see them. Oh, well, that's beautiful. So what does this mean? Every day is a good day. Do we gloss over things? How do we hold this? Now, just to make it personal, if tomorrow I fall ill and 2 weeks from now am dead, which is possible, I certainly hope that today is a good day. That, today is a really good day. We got up this morning. I've got some pinched nerve thing going on in my lower, hip. And it hurts. And it made me cranky, like bending over to put on my running shoes just to go for a walk and put the harnesses on the dogs. We've got Nick and Luis's dog we're babysitting for the week, Rem, and it hurt to bend over. And in a way, every step hurt at some level today. And so then we walk up the street into Elyria Park, which is this 35-acre wild park area full of coyotes in the middle of Los Angeles and Mount Washington. It's really quite incredible. And paths that go through the bushes and the black walnut trees. It's the largest natural stand of black walnuts in Southern California, right here. And you go down the path and you go up, and there's this one property on the other side of the canyon. There's a probably a 35-foot fishing boat or yacht.
No, it's not a yacht. It's a fishing boat.
Fishing boat.
Like a sport fishing boat.
Halfway down the hillside.
Sport fisher.
And it's just been there forever. There's no road to get it there. Lori and I are always looking at this boat going, what is the story of this boat? And something about the light today. We were focused on the boat. And then we both turned, and there we're looking out across the valley, and Griffith Park is there, and there's a sea of light blue aquamarine fog. And the Griffith Observatory is floating on top of the fog as the light comes up. Every day is a good day. How do we hold the things that hurt? How do we hold the bad things that happen? I was reminded of a woman named Mandy that a couple of you may remember. Mandy Makowitz, who married Richard, who was a member of the Santa Monica Zen Center. And I think we've mentioned him before because Richard was a Navy SEAL sniper who trained many of us, in self-defense as a way to remove fear. But anyway, I was reminded as I was thinking about this koan and how to talk about it, that bad things happen. I was going to use the S word, but I know there are kids coming in and out. Bad things happen. Probably 6 Thanksgivings ago. I don't know. I'd have to go look it up. There was a story in the news around Thanksgiving, fog, like the beautiful fog we were looking at. Yeah, maybe 8 years ago. I don't know. But fog had accumulated in Texas on a highway. And in the way that Texas fog does, was the interstate, and there was something like 40-car pileup. And I remember reading the news about this 40-car pileup and how this one SUV had been crushed between two semis in this pileup. Well, it turns out that that car that was crushed was Mandy's parents. And they did not survive. So here's this beautiful woman, Mandy, married to a wonderful man, Richard, who on Thanksgiving Day loses her parents. I mean, is that a good day? You know, I mean, that is really hard. And then a couple of years ago, Richard passed away with brain cancer. Took him down finally after a long fight. So, you know, here's Mandy with two beautiful daughters, and, you know, in the course of a decade, loses her parents and her husband. And I know some of us here on the Zoom call have experienced loss as well. So, you know, I want to acknowledge that and say that this is not coding over that, but it is how we hold it and how we take the next step forward. What do we do with the things large and small? The beautiful things, do we hang on to them? You know, or do we let them go with the 108 bells? The really, really difficult, painful things. Does the practice tell us not to feel the pain? Not at all. You know, we need to feel everything clearly. You know, and the gift that the practice gives is, how do you hold it? What do you do with it? Removing the story attached to it, because a lot of our long-term suffering comes from the stories we tell about an event, good or bad, that happened. A lot of it comes in the meaning we give things. You know, what does it mean? This why? What did I do wrong? You know, what did I do to deserve this? And on the flip side of it, the pride and look at me, at what I have attained, and holding on to that. And so in the face of that, and Chalet and I were talking about this earlier this week, is, you know, in the light of that, let's just take a really good hard look at those things and discern what is real. What are our expectations? What are we holding on to? How do we define a good and a bad day in just the normal course of life? You know, God, that was a horrible day. Well, what made it horrible? By what measure? And the same thing with the FU 2020, and here we go 2021. I mean, the sun sets and the sun rises, the fog comes in and the fog goes out. You know, the fog knows no calendar. It's another day, another moment to treasure, another breath to take. Because these markings of time that we do, and what got me going on all of this was, you know, the silly newsletter, and like, wow, we hit week 100. 100 consecutive weeks in a row we've been publishing this newsletter, you know? And if I wasn't doing it, Lori wasn't doing it. And if Lori and I were gone, Melissa was doing it. And, you know, I mean, somehow 100 weeks got done. And that was pretty cool. And I was like, well, what was the first one? And I went back and I realized that we had just kind of arbitrarily said issue number 1, you know, in 2018. But there had been, and some of you received these, another 52 or so emails that went out just from Gmail about, you know, Zazen this Sunday. Let's join Mark Fontaine and the gang over at Inside LA. And there were times before that in New Mexico after Yoshin said, it's time for you guys to open a center, where we, opened up the Zoom with bad bandwidths from Abiquiu, and sat there on the herringbone brick floor. So, where do you mark time? Where does a year begin and end? Where does my life begin and end? As Galen has said before, do you remember being born? When were you first conscious? When did you begin? It's somewhat of a mystery. It's just as our ending is somewhat of a mystery until we get there. And so then, in the newsletter every week, it's like, okay, so what am I going to lead with? What kind of image goes with it? How does it or doesn't it relate to the Dharma talk? And sometimes that gets reverse engineered, and so I, in the way of things, it's like, well, what, well, first was just put up a big 100. And then I was like, well, that's kind of boring. And it was like, oh, hourglass, passage of time. And I looked at those, and God, if you do a search for images on Google for hourglasses, boy, talk about trite and ugly images. And then, oh, sands of time, it gets even worse, right? Just in case you're wondering how this all, comes together every week, and then I went sand dune, because there was something all of a sudden that occurred about just that vastness of a sand dune. And then out of my childhood, and then our time in New Mexico again, White Sands National Park. If you have never had a chance to go there and you get a chance, go there. Because it's not only is it sand dunes, and sand dunes, as a lot of are just beautiful and fun, the way they reflect the light and change the light throughout the day. White sands is pure white and almost blinding, and at times you can lose the horizon and lose any sense of even where your feet are, like snow. So what do? You grab a piece of cardboard and you sit down and you like race down the sand dune and get sandy. Kind of like my first 50K or 31 miler in the mountains above Salt Lake City, out of Snowbird Ski Resort with my friend Paul. 31 miles, 17,000 feet of elevation gain, 15 or 17,000 feet of elevation gain in 31 miles. And at this one point, the trail goes straight down a snow slope, right? And pretty much the only fun way down it is just to sit on your butt and glissade down the snow slope, of course, without an ice axe, without anything. And so Paul and I are standing there, and I've done mountaineering, so I kind of like where's my ice axe? He's a New Yorker in street running shorts, completely unprepared to be in the mountains in many ways. And we both sit down and go down this slope and end up in this jumble and tumble of giggling grown men at the bottom. Literally, Paul and I were like, Twister, the game of Twister.
No women?
There were, well, not in our particular, not that I will tell, but no, just Paul and me in a jumble at the bottom. And isn't that our practice? Look at book club Tuesday night. We kind of got in a jumble and tangled together, like we got to be able to laugh it off and get up and keep going and take the next step. Whether we've bruised ourselves or scraped our knees, whether we're wearing the right shorts or the right robes. So anyway, the sand dunes, and then I started looking at this koan. Don't tell me about before the 15th. Tell me after the 15th. Which day are we talking about? Where does it begin and end? What's good and what's bad? How do you mark these things? How do you hold these things? Chalet, what are you resisting and why? And what is that resistance when you dive into it? What is the resistance? What is the expectation? And if you think of one grain of sand in a sand dune, I mean, which grain of sand is the dune? How many grains of sand make a sand dune? When does sand become a dune? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Which one? Which one was first? You know, I got sand all over me, down jumbled at the bottom of the hill. This verse, throwing away one, he picks up seven. This doesn't actually relate to the days of the week, even though Ummon's asking about days. It's more about, throwing away that completeness, that enlightenment. There is so much more to pick up. Looking in all directions, up and down, no one can match that direct experience of life. When we are there fully, no thing can match that. And then placidly walking along, she treads down the sound of the flowing stream. Her relaxed gaze describes the track of flying birds. Some of you will recognize a couple of koans from the Dharmakaya in those two lines of poetry. But then Setcho in this poem turns that on its head. Grasses go thick, mists overhang. All of that gets covered up. Grasses often represent obstacles, delusions. So that oneness gets obscured by the mist in the grasses. And then round Subhuti's cliff, the flowers make a mess. There's a legend about Subhuti or Sunyata, who was renowned for his concentration and ability to penetrate absolute samadhi, that at one point the gods rained flowers down upon him. And Setcho's comment is, fine, you were found out. Now what? Because in the true state of oneness, whether in absolute empty oneness or in the oneness of just walking along the stream, going down the sand dune, no gods can find you, because you are so of everything that there is nothing special to be found. It's a beautiful way to hold this practice. We strive so hard to attain it. And then if we hold on to it, we're found out. Let go. 108 bells. Let go. Voidness is lamentable. Don't stay in emptiness. And then don't make a move. Well, what am I supposed to do? If you move, you get 30 blows. And then Hakuin in the commentary, I thought it was great, said, this is like, maybe it was 10K, said, this is like a crying child, a child that's crying and you're the parent and can't get the child to stop crying. So in frustration, you say, if you don't keep crying all day long, I'm not going to feed you. Like prompting the very behavior that's driving you crazy. All right, keep crying all day long. If you don't keep crying all day long, I'm not going to feed you. There's a wonderful book by Lasker called Don't Think of an Elephant that looks at the different languages and positionings of political parties and pluses and minuses of each. But the point is, all right, everybody, you ready? Don't think of an elephant. What immediately comes up? Elephant. So this don't move is a classic Zen challenge. don't move or you get 30 blows. But what are you going to do? You have to move. Melissa, how do you move? Yeah, okay. Okay. Get up and move. So every day is a good day. How do we hold them? How do we mark time? The practice gives us some great tools. Don't get too attached to 2021 versus 2020, to Tuesday versus Monday. You know, hate the alarm clock if you want, but who said it? And why? You know, we do this to ourselves all the time. And in some of my trainings, I talk about, I often get up early and get up in the dark, and there's usually a t-shirt lying there on the floor, you know, and I grab it and I put it on. And, you know, for a long time when I got it on backwards, I'd be like, damn, like, why can I never get this on right? Well, you know, because, you know, when you put shirt on backwards, it feels all funky and you're like straight jacket. You know, but what about the other 50% of the time I got it on right? Did I stop and go, that is so cool, I got it on right? No, you know, I'm like just complaining about got it on wrong. And when that came out of my mouth spontaneously in a training I was doing with some, it was Harlem Children's Zone, working with the CEO there, I was like, oh, so simple. Every day is a good day. T-shirt on right, t-shirt on wrong, pinched nerve in the hip, or the observatory floating on the fog. And again, I just want to be really clear. This is not to gloss over pain. You know, it's part of the Four Noble Truths. Suffering occurs. And there's a way out. And the way out is the Eightfold Path. And so we practice. So, you know, happy New Year, everyone. We're looking forward to a great year, marking the time. I wanted to make sure we thanked all of you for everything you've contributed, for just showing up in the past 3 years that we've been getting this going, or continuing the 2,500 years of this going. We look forward to working with the days that are given to us, and working with Zoom or without Zoom, and with distance or without distance. One of our first tasks coming up is to build out the calendar. Our plan is to get at least a couple of Zazenkais and a couple of Sessions on the calendar, whether they are done physically or virtually or both. We're working with Yokoji to interleave our schedules so that all of you have opportunity to practice in different forms. It's not clear whether any of us will be able to go up to the mountain soon or not, but we are going to have a complementary schedule so that you have plenty of opportunities to train together, you know, and with Tenshin Roshi and the gang up there. Book club, you know, continues on, and we're just looking at how to work with the year and how to keep this going strong. Melanie, thanks for inviting your sister last week. It's always nice to see new faces, and we encourage everybody to invite people in as you see fit. We're looking forward to a great next 100 issues of the newsletter, a next 100 weeks of doing this together. We love you all and appreciate you all so much. So every day is a good day, and Happy New Year 2021. I'll open it up for anything that anybody wants to add or observe. You can unmute yourselves. Thank you. Dylan, what do you think? Is every day a good day? What do you think about 2021?
I think it's going to be like 2020. But I think my kind of continuing koan is I have really bad chronic illnesses and chronic pain. And so I do live with that every day, and still have to think every day is a good day. So it's sort of that's my practice, or I'm trying to make it my practice, to have this massive pain that never goes away, and yet enjoy sitting, enjoy my kids, enjoy my music. And I still have to acknowledge that it's there, and it certainly tells me that it's there. But I think it's gotten a lot better with the Zen practice that I've returned to. And sitting, sometimes it goes away, but if it doesn't, it's there, but it's not there in the same way. The story is not there. This story that I tell myself other times, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever, that goes away when I'm doing the practice right, I think. So I can really relate to what you're talking about with your pinched nerve. And I don't even, if I'm doing things right, I don't even get mad about it. I just know it's there, but it doesn't overwhelm me. And the story that my life is over it goes away. And I abide, I guess. I feel it, I live with it, but I also can feel everything else. And so what you were saying, it really has a lot of relevance to my life at the moment. So because before all this chronic illness, I was very healthy and never sick. And so it's easy for me to go to a bad place as far as a narrative. And so the Zen practice helps me overcome that.
And when you do get angry, Dylan, then what?
I sit with it. I sit with the anger. I don't let it kind of build on itself. I acknowledge the anger. I don't try to invalidate the anger. I kind of abide with it. That's a new thing for me. So, and that's meditation very much helps me to do that. So I don't try to invalidate feelings, but I do try to sit with them rather than go crazy about them, like add like yet another level of anger on top of that anger. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's great instruction, Dylan. I actually don't have anything to add to that instruction. Because the practice is not about squelching our humanity. The practice is not to say you should not feel that.
I used to think that it was, especially like in high school, I used to meditate and be Mr. Zen guy. And I used to think it was like, being above everything, but it's not, it's really being with everything. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of a new realization for me.
Nice work. Really, really good work. And this is why when we're sharing with other people too, we need to be careful and open, because, me having a pain in my lower, left hip is somewhat inconsequential compared to whatever's going on with anybody else out there. And by the way, Dylan, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but you're not the only member of our extended Sangha dealing with this chronic everyday pain. You know, and so that's just something for all of us to be aware of too, is we have no idea what's actually going on in somebody else's life. And so when something bubbles up or bursts out or falls apart or goes sideways, you know, we don't know, you know, and there can arise compassion. Has anybody here ever, like, you know, got angry and said something they wish they hadn't said? Hands up. Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was going to say, come on, Mark, you angel over there, get that hand up, you know? But, you know, so I've done that, you've done that, we've done that, right? So when there's something like that in our space, yeah, what's going on? Yeah. So anyway, Dylan, thank you for the sharing, and very, very, very important and good coaching. Anybody else?
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Hey, thank you for sharing, Dylan. So good to see everybody. Hi, John. Long time no see. I just liked your I liked your metaphor of the shirt on backwards. I put my shirt on backwards this morning. Indeed, it does feel like a straitjacket. But to go beyond that, it's just funny because I really need to put my shirt on backwards, the metaphorical shirt on backwards. Like, I need things to feel like a straitjacket. And I appreciate more and more that that's part of my cycle, both creatively and just as a human being. And if I don't get that frustration and that feeling of constriction, like, I will not break through the wall that I need to break through to get to new terrain and new territory. And I appreciate more and more that feeling of stuckness and frustration, because I see where it takes me, you know. And I also appreciate, Dylan, what you were saying, so relatable about, like, feeling, you know, at the beginning, the practice feels like you need to be above everything and you need to be perfect. And I know Galen has said things like this in the past too, like, until he appreciated the shadow, like he thought that he needed to be, and I'm obviously way paraphrasing here, but thought that think you need to be perfect, you know, and until you appreciate all of the various aspects, and you know, that's where we need to be. And appreciating the stuckness too. And I'm in a stuck moment right now. And so, it's very helpful to realize that's where I need to be. I need to feel all of this so I can get through to the next part and feel that open freedom that comes from breaking through that shirt on backwards constriction, straitjacket feeling. So thank you, Dan, and happy New Year, everyone. Or whatever New Year, everyone. Appreciating all the culturing, all the stuckness that lays before us.
Yeah. And Tennessee, there's even a little step further you can take with "this is where I need to be," is just, this is where I am. You know, because even "this is where I need to be" has some story in it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, the practice is not it's funny because I'm a complete believer, obviously, but it's not like a magic wand guarantee, like just boom, your suffering is gone. But it is the potential, you know, to alleviate the suffering, and some really great tools. But each of us has to do the work. You know, it's not the flowers dropped on from high. Okay, you're free, no suffering. We have to do the work, because we have to realize that shirt on backwards is just a shirt on backwards every time for ourselves.
And sometimes even flowers falling from the sky can hit you in the face and feel like that sword.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, if you're not in the right mental space, you can't even appreciate that there are flowers falling in the sky.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Really true.
What comes to mind for me, I love this talk. It's such an interesting topic of how we navigate suffering, um, especially in the context of Zen practice, which is all about navigating suffering, really. But I've just gotten really present to how much I feel like my Zen practice has taught me that I am the one responsible for the suffering, like again and again. I mean, every time I sit, I realize that I am the one at the source of the suffering, but there's different ways to handle it. Like, and all of these I learned through Zen practice too. Like you can turn the volume down, which is sitting, like quieting the mind, quieting the thoughts. You can just be okay with the thoughts, like you can just be with the suffering, which is, I feel like, another, like when we do, I'm not gonna be able to remember the name of it, but I think shikantaza, when you just, the type of meditation where you're just watching your thoughts and letting them go. You're not resisting them, you're just watching them. Like that's another way to navigate suffering. And then there's, of course, like changing your mindset or shifting the way you're thinking about the suffering. But I love that our practice kind of, it just reinforces every time I sit that I do have some control. Like I am at the source of what's going on here, and there's kind of different ways I can approach it. So yeah, in a way, this year has been such an incredible Zen teacher for it. Like, what a training ground for how to navigate suffering. 2020, there you have it. So yeah, I guess I'm just very grateful for the practice, and I'm very grateful to be practicing with all of you during this time. So thank you.
Amazing.
Thanks, Melissa. Lori?
Oh, well, I was just really, really great to have so many of you who are in the creative fields with me here today, because it's like when I get stuck, that's when I go to the studio and just see how stuck am I? Just how bad does this look? And it's a wonderful piece of courage that I've given myself over the years, to allow myself to make some really bad, ugly stuff, so I can know what's there, so I can really identify. Because I think we all have the tendency to run away from that which is not, making us look good, because it's all about looking good in this life, isn't it? And yeah, so it's a part of my practice to look bad, and to allow the shadow to really, really show up. And and it takes a while for that to really, really identify itself, to have those pieces come into focus in a way. It could take 3 or 4 passes or more, to really allow that to just show up. And then it just flips into something else, so it's the benefit is an automatic energy that comes with having bared your soul to yourself, and just been really frank and honest, and as most as you can. And thanks for bringing that up, Tennessee. It really helped me to remember that this is an important thing to share, is that we have to take ourselves to a place where we can really, really see what did 2020 do for me? What did it do to me? And is my path in the coming year going to be paved with these lessons? I certainly hope so. I certainly hope that it takes me into my future, and I want to always refine that ability to to look back. I mean, I know we're not supposed to be carrying memories with us, but we have to continuously recognize what we've learned so that we can have the courage to face what is. Thanks, Dan. That was a great talk. Really helpful.
I just want to point out how much Rim is suffering with Lori. Lori, thank you for sharing. How are we doing? Shalay, how'd you do with the, the resistance?
Good. Good. I just have so many thoughts right now. It's hard to focus on just one. That's what my silence is. Yeah, the stuff, it's just, again, I guess what I'm thinking about, to answer your question, but also on top of something I was thinking about related to our suffering, and how we deal with it. I guess it's just that clinging to old behaviors and things that we've become comfortable with just continuing on. Or me, I should only speak for myself, of course, not in the we, but just that letting go of those old ways of dealing with things. That's what I've been, I think, focusing on a lot lately. And the things that keep me from moving forward are only because I'm just staying in the same place with them and not letting go of how those things are dealt with. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but because I'm thinking too many things at one time. But yeah, I guess that's what the root of a lot of suffering that I am dealing with at time. And I'm not really suffering very much at all. I have to say I'm very fortunate at the moment. But the root of that is just really the hanging on to it and hanging on to past behaviors. I guess that's what comes to mind to answer that. Yeah.
Thanks, Shalay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for your practice.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right. Everybody good? I really do, although I'm invalidating time, I really do wish everyone a wonderful and fabulous new year,
Mhm.
For yourselves and for us collectively together.
Yeah.
Very,
Mhm.
very excited about this group and very thankful. It's good to see you all here on the first Sunday of the new year. Galen, were you reaching for the unmute or you just...
Well, I wasn't, but I think this is pertinent. I saw a tremendous number of memes this year about New Year's, but my favorite one was, and many of you may have seen it, but was two aliens standing on the bridge of a starship, and one of them says, "What are they celebrating?" And the other one says, "They're celebrating their planet making a complete revolution around their star." And the first one says, "I told you they weren't intelligent."
Yeah.
My reaction to the koan is when I hear the word good, I think, well, he could have just as well said every day's a bad day. Roshi talks about Maizumi Roshi when it comes to the statement of the Buddha attaining to the wisdom and virtue of the Tathagata, to thusness. He says, you can forget about the virtue. And he said, the thing is, we veer to the good, which is such a beautiful thing to hear from me, instead of, yeah, we're all seeking sainthood or something. He goes, no, we just veer to the good, you know. So so you know, there it is. That I wish I had more, but that's where I'm at.
That's good. That's
That's amazing.
beautiful, Galen. Thank you very much. All right. 4 vows.
4 vows it is.
Okay, here we go.
Good job, man. Sentient beings are